Gerald and Felicia were the epitome of a modern, fashionable couple. Gerald, a successful entrepreneur, had met Felicia, a stunning beauty with a flair for the extravagant, at a high-end event in Victoria Island. They fell in love quickly, captivated by each other's charm and presence. In the early days, everything seemed perfect. Gerald admired Felicia's vibrant energy and how she could effortlessly light up any room she entered. Her beauty was matched only by her confidence, and Gerald found himself drawn to her magnetic personality. They shared long, luxurious dates, exploring the finest restaurants and attending exclusive events, wrapped up in the excitement of their blossoming romance. As time passed and they settled into married life, Gerald began to notice aspects of Felicia's character that he hadn't seen before. What initially seemed like an exciting, carefree attitude began to reveal itself as a deep-rooted love for material things. Felicia's passion for shopping, her endless desire for new clothes, jewelry, and gadgets, which Gerald once found endearing, now started to feel overwhelming. Every day, there were new demands, new expenses, and a growing sense of dissatisfaction whenever she didn't get exactly what she wanted. At first, Gerald brushed off these concerns, telling himself that this was just a phase or part of adjusting to married life. He wanted to make Felicia happy, so he continued to indulge her desires, hoping that over time, she would begin to appreciate the simpler things they had together. But as the months rolled on, it became clear that Felicia's focus remained fixed on her lavish lifestyle, while the warmth and connection they once shared seemed to be slipping away. Gerald also began to notice that Felicia had little interest in the everyday responsibilities that came with married life. While he worked hard to build their future, Felicia seemed content to let the household run itself, avoiding any tasks that she deemed beneath her. Cooking, cleaning, and even managing their home's affairs were all things she either ignored or left to others. Gerald, who had imagined a partnership where they would support each other in all aspects of life, started to feel a growing frustration. The sparkle that had once drawn him to Felicia was dimming, not because he loved her any less, but because he could see that beneath her glittering exterior, she was lost in a world of excess, disconnected from the realities that were so important to him. As Gerald grappled with these realizations, he began to understand that the life they were building was not the one he had envisioned. As Gerald sat in the soft leather chair in their cozy living room, he watched Felicia, his wife, eagerly chatting with her friends about their upcoming shopping spree. Her excitement was palpable, her eyes sparkling with anticipation as she discussed the latest fashion trends and the luxury items she planned to buy. However, Gerald felt a deep concern growing within him. He loved Felicia dearly, but he couldn't ignore the fact that her focus on material possessions seemed to overshadow other important aspects of life. It wasn't just about the money being spent, it was the way she found her happiness in things rather than experiences or deeper connections. Gerald thought about how they once shared dreams beyond the latest designer bags or shoes. They had talked about traveling to new places, helping others, and building a meaningful life together. But now, those dreams seemed distant, buried under layers of shopping bags and luxury brands. He knew he couldn't change Felicia overnight, but he felt a strong need to try. That was when the idea struck him, perhaps hiring a house help would subtly show her a different perspective on life. It was a small step, but it could be the beginning of a shift in her values. Felicia was overjoyed at the prospect of having someone to take over the household chores she had always dreaded. The thought of no longer having to worry about cleaning, cooking, or laundry filled her with relief. Gerald soon introduced Blessing, a quiet and hard-working young lady. Blessing was respectful, diligent, and quickly settled into her new role, making Felicia's life much easier. However, Felicia remained blissfully unaware of Gerald's true intentions for hiring Blessing, unaware that he hoped her presence might gently shift Felicia's focus away from materialism. In the weeks that followed, Gerald began to spend an increasing amount of time with Blessing. Each day, he would visit her in the kitchen, engaging in friendly conversations and expressing his appreciation for her cooking. He even offered a helping hand with various small tasks around the house, making Blessing's work lighter and more pleasant. This new dynamic seemed to improve the household atmosphere, with Gerald and Blessing sharing easy laughter and mutual respect. Felicia, however, was so absorbed in her bustling social calendar and upcoming events that she barely paid attention to this developing relationship. Her days were filled with shopping sprees, parties, and social gatherings, leaving her little time to notice the subtle changes at home. It wasn't until one particular evening, as she was getting ready to attend another glamorous party, that she saw Gerald and Blessing in the living room. They were laughing together over something trivial, their shared amusement filling the room. For the first time, Felicia felt a sharp pang of jealousy. It struck her unexpectedly, making her realize that Gerald's growing closeness with Blessing was something she hadn't anticipated or fully understood. As the days turned into weeks, Felicia started to observe a noticeable change in Gerald. He no longer showed interest in asking her about her latest outings or inquired about her new purchases. His enthusiasm for her social life seemed to have vanished, and it was becoming increasingly clear to Felicia that his attention had shifted elsewhere. This change was difficult for her to ignore, no matter how hard she tried. To cope with the growing void, Felicia threw herself into even more social events, attending parties and gatherings with a renewed fervor. She hoped that by staying busy and surrounded by friends, she could forget the unsettling feelings creeping into her life. However, no matter how many events she attended or how many people she mingled with, an emptiness persisted. The absence of Gerald's involvement and interest in her life began to weigh heavily on her. It felt like a dark cloud had settled over her once bright world, casting a shadow over her usual excitement and joy. The disconnect between them grew more apparent, and she couldn't ignore the growing sense of loss and dissatisfaction. One evening, determined to win back Gerald's attention, Felicia decided to try something new. She had never cooked before, but she was willing to give it her best shot. She stayed home and, despite being unsure of herself, rolled up her sleeves to start cooking. The kitchen quickly became a mess, with flour on the counters and dishes scattered everywhere. The food didn't turn out as she had hoped, it was far from perfect. Nevertheless, she set the table with care, arranging the plates and silverware with a nervous hope. When Gerald arrived, he looked surprised to see her effort. He thanked her politely but didn't sit down to eat. Instead, he went directly to the kitchen and ate the food that Blessing had prepared earlier. Felicia watched in disappointment as her heart sank, feeling a mix of hurt and sadness. The tension in the house grew. Felicia's jealousy turned into anger, and she started quarreling with Blessing at every turn. She even threatened to send her packing several times, but Gerald firmly refused. Each time, Gerald's coldness only deepened Felicia's sense of loss. She began to question everything: her lifestyle, her choices, and her marriage. One night, after a particularly harsh argument with Blessing, Felicia broke down in tears. She realized that her extravagant life had cost her the love of her husband. Determined to change, she stopped her endless shopping sprees and late-night outings. She began to learn how to cook through online tutorials, spending hours in the kitchen perfecting dishes. She started doing the chores herself and even asked Blessing to stop cooking so she could handle it. Gerald watched these changes quietly, his heart torn between the love he had for Felicia and the pain he had endured because of her behavior. But seeing her genuine efforts, he knew it was time to reveal the truth. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Felicia nervously awaiting his reaction to the dinner she had prepared, Gerald took her hand. "Felicia, there's something you need to know about Blessing," he began, his voice gentle but firm. Felicia looked at him, fear gripping her heart. "She's not just a house help. She's my cousin. I asked her to come here because I wanted to show you what it meant to value the things that really matter: love, effort, and the simple joys of life. Felicia's eyes widened in shock. You did all this to teach me a lesson? She asked, her voice trembling. Gerald nodded. I love you, Felicia. But I couldn't continue living the way we were. I needed you to see that our marriage is worth more than just material things. Tears filled Felicia's eyes as the truth sank in. She had been so blinded by her desires that she hadn't seen how much it was hurting the man she loved. I'm so sorry, Gerald, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I never realized how much I was pushing you away. Gerald pulled her into his arms, holding her close. What matters is that you've changed. That's all I ever wanted. From that day on, Felicia's life took a new direction. She found joy in cooking, in keeping their home, and in spending time with Gerald. The designer bags and luxurious parties lost their appeal as she rediscovered the love she had almost lost. As for Blessing, she eventually left to pursue her own dreams. And so, Gerald and Felicia's marriage, once strained by extravagance and neglect, blossomed into something deeper, built on love, understanding, and the true value of what it means to be a family.